Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Today we're doing the ultimate argument. Oh yes, power tools versus hand tools. Yeah. Now, contrary to popular belief, I am actually a little more comfortable with power tools than I am with hand tools. Most of my woodworking career has been done with all power tools. The hand tool is a little bit newer item. I've only been doing it just hand tools for the last 6 years or so. And I do own a rather large collection of power tools, from different sanders to several routers to a pile of drills to a thickness planer and a table saw out in the garage. So I don't limit myself to hand tools, but because this channel is focused on teaching hand tools, that's what I predominantly use. If the channel wasn't all about teaching hand tools, I would be very solidly hybrid, doing a lot of both. I find that power tools are great for a lot of things and hand tools are great for a lot of things, so why not use both? But because I do teach hand tools, I'm not actually teaching anything if I pull out power tools. So that's why you don't see them that much in the shop. But every now and then they do come out, and from time to time you will see the demoned yellow brace appear in videos. All that being said, there's a lot more to this other than which one is better. So whenever you're starting an argument, the best place to start is actually with some definition of terms. And really, this is where most of the argument comes from. First off, you have to determine what is a hand tool. And there are two predominant schools of thought between this, though there are some other nuances that will come in between it. There's number one that says a hand tool is a tool that is used in the hand. It's not something that's stationary. It is something that is taken to the work rather than the work being taken to it. Such as a palm router. Because I use it in my hand, it would be a hand tool. But if I mount it into a table, then it would become stationary. You bring the work to it, and it would become a power tool. Then you have school of thought number two, and that is a hand tool is something that is powered by your hand, whereas a power tool is something that is powered by power. But that one gets really confusing, because what happens if it's powered by your feet? That's a foot-powered tool, not a hand-powered tool. So a lot of times the terms are actually determined by the antithesis. So a hand tool versus an electrical tool could be hand versus power. Whereas a hand tool versus a stationary table saw would be a hand tool versus stationary tool. But at that point you're getting into semantics, which you're arguing just for the sake of arguing as opposed to trying to discuss the topic at hand. And that one is, which is better? There are a lot of subcategories that can add to the discussion, such as what if it is mill powered? In other words, water running over it. It's not electricity, it's belt powered. So is that a power tool or a hand tool? And then you're really kind of splitting hairs and you're going down the line, because you can't just say it's A or B when there are also C, D, E, and F options to choose from. And then you start getting into the historical versus modern. They're both hand powered planes. But one of them is eschewed because it's new and fangled, and the other one is old and traditional. Which tradition are you talking about? Are you talking about the French tradition, the German tradition, the Japanese tradition? Or is it the Japanese 14th century? Is it the Japanese 17th century? Each one of them have different traditions, so you can't just say the traditional method, because there are hundreds of different traditional methods. Yeah, this is one where you can go down a really, really deep rabbit hole very, very quickly, and you can create 100 different positions all fighting against each other, all saying it's you versus me. No, it's just everyone has a slightly different interpretation of the very same thing. So, for me, on this channel, my interpretation is a hand tool is something that is powered by myself. Not necessarily by my hand, I might use my feet, but it's not powered with electricity or water power or something else. It's something that I put in the physical effort to it. Does that mean that this is the definition? No, it just means that's the definition that I'm going to use for what I talk about. So for the rest of this video, and in general the channel, if I say hand powered, it's something that I actually produce the energy to create it happening. If it is something that is power tooled, that means that it plugs in, or it's got a cord, or it's powered by water, or something else that is outside of my own personal energy. Now, yes, I could get on a bike and pedal to generate energy to then power the battery pack. And would that make... Oh no, not another caveat to this argument. So with all those shenanigans out of the way, which is better, power tools or hand tools? And if you know anything about this channel, you already know the answer. There is no better. They each have their pros and cons and different things that different people like. And if you may be in one camp where you like this, and you may be in another camp where you like this, it doesn't matter. To one person, sanding might be faster. To another person, planing might be faster. But does faster make it better? In another case, hand carving might be more fun, but a router might be more fun. And then there's accuracy. Which one is more accurate? Which one will give you the most precise cuts, the most perfect holes, the most beautiful surfaces? But I'm new to woodworking, so which one is the easiest to learn on? Or which one will teach me the most? Or which one will provide the new beginner the best results? And in all honesty, that's just scratching the surface on different characteristics that might be important to one person or another. There are so many different variables that you cannot say one is better than the other. They each have their own personalities, their different uses, and so why argue about that? In general, power tools tend to guarantee a cleaner, more precise cut with less effort. However, they require more setup, and the skill in the power tool is generally in the setup of the tool. Whereas with a hand tool, yeah, there's some setup to it, but the skill of using the hand tool is in the actual use of it. And it gives you far more variability and control. Because I can go deeper and I can go shallower just by slight twists in my wrist. Whereas with a power tool, it's deeper or shallower depending upon how I set it up with the jig on it. Hand tools tend to be a little slower. Though there are some cases where they're faster and some cases where they're slower. Power tools tend to be a little faster. So if you're going to be doing something that's repetitive over and over again, usually a power tool is going to be faster. If you're doing one step one time, often a hand tool is faster. Cutting a groove is almost always faster with a hand tool, unless you need to cut a bunch of them, and then it's faster to do it with a power tool. Hand tools tend to be a little more difficult to learn. They take more skill, which means you have to put more time into actually using them. Whereas a power tool tends to be a little easier to learn. It's more just setting up the gauges and everything you need at the correct measurements, and then you use it. Once a table saw is set up, just about anyone can cut a really nice clean cut. But I can set up a handsaw within an inch of its life, and it still needs skill to use. So a table saw is a little easier to learn, whereas a handsaw is a little harder to learn. One is definitely not better than the other. They each have their pros and cons, and they each have their uses. And for me, the reason I use power tools is I'm teaching them, so I want to actually provide more opportunities to learn, and so I'm tending to grab the power tool over the hand tool. But there are still times where I'm going to take it outside and run it through the thickness planer, because I'm not going to spend 14 hours down here thickness planing wood by hand when I can just go outside and go and it's done. And then I'll bring one down here to actually teach how it's done. But in general, if I use a power tool, I'm going to show it in the video because I want to show that one is not better than the other. It's not about snobbery or doing something better to eschew the power tools. For me, it's mostly because I tend to find this more fun. I find hand tools to be more enjoyable. Just like banging your head against a wall. It feels so good when you're done. The big reason why I switched to predominantly hand tools is because I had young kids at the time, and they had nap time, and power tools tend to be much louder than hand tools. Though hand tools can be loud, they also tend to be a little safer. Every one of my tools has a flesh sensing stop. If I cut myself, it stops, and often then goes flying across the room. Whereas with a power tool, it will keep going for a little while until I have to force it to stop. So they can be a little safer. There's also less dust. I tend to make curls which don't float around as much, whereas dust from power tools tends to get everywhere. So there's pros and cons to each, and that's the main reasons why I do this. If I were doing this as a business, in other words, I'm producing things, I would be using power tools a lot more, because it's hard to be financially stable just using hand tools, unless you have a serious name for just hand tool made products. Which then that brings us to the term of handmade. Ooh, this bench was handmade. Now, does that mean that I only used tools that were powered by myself, or did a drill come out to drill the dog holes? And the moment I used a drill, it's no longer handmade. No, if you made it yourself, it's handmade. Or you could use the argument that all the tools had to be powered by your own hand, or they're only tools that were in your hand. And really, that's a term you shouldn't be arguing about. If it's something that someone made one-off or a small batch of them in their own garage, it's handmade. Don't get bent out of shape over that term, please. So this topic kind of came along because I've seen several really heated arguments about this in the last few days. And really, I've got to say, knock it off. There are much better things to argue about. And especially in this day and age, we don't need to be arguing about the fun things in life. If you want to use just hand-powered tools, then use them. If you want to bring in these cords, then use them. If you like batteries, use them. If it's something that makes you happy, use it. And that is the biggest key of anything I can say on this, is that do what makes you happy. Don't do what has to be faster. If faster makes you happier, then great. If slower makes you happier, then great. If having a little more control and making it a little bit more handmade makes you happier, then great. Do what makes you happy. And what makes you happy is going to be different from what makes him happy, is going to be different from what makes me happy. And that's what this channel is all about. The joy of woodworking. So find what puts a smile on your face and have fun. So there you have it. Power tools versus hand tools. Yeah, this is something that we can have a lot of fun about and poking fun at people for one another. But please draw the line at that. Don't make this an argument that we have to divide over, because there are lots of other things in this world that we can divide over, and this shouldn't be one of them. So let's have a little bit of fun in the shop. Let's try something new and experiment. And you never know, you may find out that that other doohickey that you've been eschewing is actually rather enjoyable. Be willing to try something a little different and experiment. And let me know in the comments down below, what other caveats did I mention, or what other argument paths could I have gone down that I didn't? I do like reading those from time to time, but please keep it civil. We have a lot of other things out there in this world we can argue over. Let's not make this one of them. So I hope you like it. If you did, let me know down below. Comments, like, share, subscribe, you know all those things. They do help out the channel, so thank you for that. Also, there's a bunch of people scrolling over here on the side. They are the patrons on Patreon, and they are the ones quite literally keeping the lights on and keeping us going. Without patrons on Patreon, this channel wouldn't exist. We are completely sponsored by you, the viewers, so thank you for that. If you would like to find out more about Patreon, we do have links to that down below. We do have special perks for both patrons and members who click the little join button down there. Thank you. Without you guys, we wouldn't exist. So I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Are you ready to rumble?